Hey there, FAU. I wanted to do a quick video tutorial here on how to make a better application for your scholarships and your grants. So first thing you're going to do when you get the flyer for one of your scholarships at school is make sure that you qualify for it, right? Just make sure, go through, read everything, make sure that you are the person that this scholarship is aimed towards. And then once you figure out that you're the person, then you're going to go ahead and start to create your application. Right, so I look through here, I know I fit all of this stuff, I really need the $400 to do a project, so I'm going to look and see, okay, first thing they want, requirements, here we go. Submit the following in a single PDF. Sometimes PDFs can be a little bit tricky to make look nice and concise and clean, and the application that I often use, or the software that I like to use, is PowerPoint. PowerPoint is really nice, and I'm going to kind of go over a few of the reasons that it is really nice. If you don't have PowerPoint, it's not too big of a deal because as an FAU student, you do have a Google Drive. And in Google Drive, when you go into your Google Drive, you can go to New, and you can create what is called a Google Slides. Right? Google Slides is basically PowerPoint, right? Except by Google. And the nice thing about this too is you can export it as a PowerPoint if you ever have to turn in a PowerPoint for a class. Or you can turn this into a PDF as well. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to use PowerPoint because it's on my desktop here. But Google Slides is very, very similar. Making a better application. First thing to think about is look at the requirements. Sometimes it'll be really specific. It'll tell you exactly like what size to make it and etc. In this case, though, if there's no size requirement, I would think about what do I want the images to look like, or what do I want the slides to look like? And what I mean by that is size-wise. How big do I want them to be, right? And so if we go to the Design tab here, you can actually change the slide size. So if we go here and we go to Page Setup, we can change this, right? So we could make this like a normal piece of paper. We could do 8.5 by 11, or we could do it horizontal. We could do it, let's go ahead and do it 11 by 8.5. Now again, how do you make this choice? You might make this choice regarding the images that you're going to use, right? You might not care and just keep it as it has it. It's up to you. But in this case, I just wanted to show you that you do have the power to change the size. The next thing I normally do is let's go ahead and get rid of this text box. And then I like starting with a blank slide, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, right? So we can right click on this and go to duplicate, or we'll just do that, I guess. I was going to say I think the shortcut is Command D. Okay, cool. So we make a bunch of slides. Perfect. So let's go back to that first one, and then let's go back to the requirements. So it says we know we need a single PDF, and we know that how to title the file. And then let's look. It needs a title page, which includes name, major, year, email, and Z number. Okay. So first thing, title page. So let's go back to the Home tab here, and let's go to text box, and I'm going to put my name. Okay. Year means year of graduation, so we'll say I'm going to graduate this year. What else did it say there? I forgot. Name, major, year, email, Z number. Okay, so my major is ceramics, not typing, and so name, major, year, and email. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip the sorry. I'm going to go ahead and skip the Z number for now. Okay, so here we go. So here it is, right? Done. That's what they wanted. That's the title page. I would suggest probably making it look a little bit nicer, right? You don't have to go crazy with this. You don't have to make it so interesting. And sometimes you don't want to make it too interesting because your application can be so interesting that it will overshadow the information that you're submitting. But I think you do want it to look good, right? And so graphic designers, this might be right up your alley. It's designing a great looking application. But make sure that it's not so fancy that the committee or the judges can't look at what you're actually submitting, because your application is like a piece of artwork in and of itself, right? So do be careful not to make it too fancy, but I think you want to make it look nice. You want it to be clear and concise and organized. Here we're going to maybe, it doesn't ask for this, but I think it's probably not a bad idea to have the name of the scholarship on our title page. So let's go ahead and put that. Okay. And you can play with the font or the size or whatever you want to do. Again, you can make it look however you want. And I would try to make it look reasonably clean and nice and concise if possible. Okay, so let's go ahead and say we have our title page here and we're pretty excited about it and we like it. Does it have all the information they're asking for? And I think it does, okay? Name, major, year, and then remember I wasn't going to do the number. So cool, so we've got our title page. Now we're going to go to our next slide. What do they want next? Okay, 5 images. Okay, I have my images here on my desktop, so I'm going to pull the first one that I have in. All right, so here it is. Now, with your images, I think you want to make sure that your images are really nice images. What do I mean by nice images? In this image, you can see the thing that I want people to look at very clearly, right? The lighting is good. There's not too much noise in the background, right? So imagine I took this image on my desk, and in the background here's a lamp, and then there's like a bottle of water and my window or whatever. You know, that type of background noise can take away people's attention to what you really want them to be paying attention to, which is your artwork, right? So make sure you have good images. Okay, so next let's think about you know, how do I want the image to look in the slide? Do I like this? Do I want it to be bigger? Do I want it to be smaller? Maybe I want it to have a little bit of a frame, the slide framing it a little bit, so I want to have a little bit of a white border around it. Whatever you think looks good and yet doesn't interfere with the artwork, I think is fine, okay? Next, we want to go back to the requirements here, and we see that it says label with year, size, and media. Okay, year, size, and media. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a text box again, and we're going to go ahead and put that information in. So when did I make this sculpture? I think I made this possibly in 2018. Year, geez, my memory is so bad. Sorry, size and media. Okay, so size, I don't know how big this is anymore, but let's go ahead and guess. We're going to say 24 by 18 by 12, and then make sure that you have the measurement that you used, so inches in this case, and then media is ceramic. Now with this, if you want to add more information, that's up to you, right? Some people like to put a little description, a short description. Some people might like to have the title of their work in here, their name, right? So I would definitely make sure that you have what is being asked for. If you add extra, that's okay. I just make sure you don't go overboard, okay? You don't want to have too much. That can put people off a little bit. So let's say that this is titled Sculpture 1, and then when you put a title, just make sure that you put it in italics. Just remember that titles are always in italics, okay? And then what we could do is let's go ahead and move this down so it's not in the way of our sculpture, which is what we really want to be looked at. So we need to do that for 5 images. Okay, so they want 5 images of our work. Now in this case, I said you could add more sometimes. If they ask for 5 images and you put 10 images in, I would not do that, right? In some things you can add a little bit, like if you wanted to add a short description here, or you know, you wanted to have more information, I think that can be okay as long as it's not too much, right? But I think some of these are pretty solid, right? If it says 5 images, I would just add 5 images. If it says a 1-page art history paper excerpt, I would just add 1 page. If you send a 40-page document, the judges are probably not going to be overly pleased in that case, okay? So you can add a little, but do it thoughtfully, okay? Okay, so let's pretend that we put 5 images in. So here's 1, so let's just go ahead and pretend that I did 5 of these. Okay, perfect. And now the other thing to think about is, like, let's say I'm going to pull my next image in. Okay, so let's pull this image in. Now this image we can see is a very different size than my first image, right? I probably want to have some cohesiveness between these 2 images, right? So in this first one, I made this little frame around the image, right? So for the second one, I probably want to do the same thing. I probably want to have that little bit of a frame around it, just to have some cohesion. Now with this, what I would really like to do is crop this image. I would like to go ahead and get rid of this. It's a bit big, and I'd like it to match this first image size-wise if I could. Right, so what I would probably do here is I'd probably go ahead and crop this so I had this little like white border here that I could put my title into or my description, and that would be quite nice. Now cropping in PowerPoint is possible, but I don't think I want to take the time to do that right now. So we'll go ahead and pretend that I cropped it. And how can I do that? Maybe we'll put in a rectangle, a white rectangle. How about that? So let's format this really quickly. Sorry about this. Shape fill. Yikes. Okay, let's go with white. Okay, perfect. So we're going to pretend that I cropped my image. And hopefully it doesn't have that outline. Let's see if it does. Okay, so let's make the outline white. Okay, cool. So we're pretending I cropped that. And now it matches my first image a little better, right? Where I have this kind of nice border here. And then I want to make sure I go ahead and add my description, right? So this is going to be sculpture 2, same, whatever. So you're going to change the information as needed. Okay, perfect. So then I'm going to go ahead and repeat that situation 3 more times so that I have my 5 images. Cool. Next, it says a 1-paragraph statement. So let's go to our next slide. And here, I think it is nice sometimes if you have a little kind of a header, right? So go ahead and write statement. It's not the worst thing to do. Usually the judges are going to know what's necessary. So this probably don't have to do this. But I think for like organization's sake, it does look nice when you kind of say this slide is, right? And then we're going to go ahead and write our statement. So I am applying to the Esther Saylor Rothenberger Scholarship because ... Why do you need the money? What are you going to do with the money? Do you have a project in mind? Do you have a certain artwork that you want to make? Now here I think they're asking for 1 paragraph, right? So that's 3 to 4 sentences. I wouldn't go beyond that too much. Just concisely talk about why and what you're going to, why you want the money and what you're going to do with it, right? Now, make sure that you proofread this. We're taking all this time to make sure that our images look really good. Make sure with your statement that your statement reads well, that there aren't grammatical errors. Write this, read through it, make sure everything looks good, and then give it to a friend or a family member to read through and make sure that they think it looks good, right? Take some time on the writing. The writing is important also, okay? So now we've got our 1-paragraph statement indicating how the award will support my ongoing study. Perfect. Now, sometimes there are going to be different requirements, right? Some of these applications are going to ask for an artist statement, or they're going to ask for an itemized budget. They're going to ask for different things. So let's pretend that it did ask for an itemized budget. I tend to keep each thing or requirement on a different slide, right? You could put, if you have your 1 paragraph here, let's say, and there's some space at the bottom, you could put your budget there. As long as it doesn't look crowded, I think that's fine. Or you can create a new page and put your budget on the next page. What is a budget? An itemized budget is basically just a list of the stuff that you're going to buy with the money, right? So you've got your budget here, your little header, and then a budget basically is going to say, okay, I'm going to buy some yellow paint, right? And that costs $42 a tube or whatever, right? And then maybe here we could, and you can get as detailed with this as you want, right? 1, 2. Again, make sure it's concise, make sure it's clear, make sure it's readable, and hopefully it also will look organized and easy to understand, right? Now you're going to have a different aesthetic than I am. You're going to set this up however you want. My suggestion would be make it look good, but don't go overboard, right? I have students sometimes who will present present a PowerPoint in my class, and their presentation, and what I mean by that is like in the PowerPoint itself, things will be like zooming into the frame and zooming out of the frame. The presentation is actually more interesting than the things that they're talking about, right? I don't think that's a great situation. You want the information of your application to be more interesting than like the aesthetics of your application, right? So don't take the attention away from what you really want the attention to be on, and yet you do want it to look good and be easy to read, okay? Okay, so on an itemized budget, you're gonna list all the stuff that you're gonna spend the money on, right? So I'm gonna buy paint, I'm gonna buy clay, maybe I wanna buy a special type of clay, so I'm gonna buy porcelain, 22 pounds or whatever, right? So you're gonna put all the stuff that you're gonna buy here. And this costs, like, I don't know how much it costs, but we're going to say it costs $32. And normally you want your budget to equal the amount of money that is being offered. So here they're saying it's $400. So you probably want to say, this is how I'm going to spend the $400, right? My plan is to buy this and this and this. And sometimes that will be really specific. They'll say like, okay, this is only for materials, or this is only for equipment, or whatever, you know. So you want to make sure that your budget fits what the requirements are. Okay, perfect. So we've got all of our information here. They didn't ask for a budget, but you might get asked for a budget sometime. We know that. Perfect. Now, the reason I like PowerPoint, a few reasons. First of all, sometimes these files can get really large, right? And in the flyer, they might say like no larger than 10 megabytes or something like that, right? And PowerPoint is really convenient because if we go to File, and we can go to Compress Pictures. So we can compress our pictures, and here it's saying print 220 dpi. We know this is only going to be viewed on screen, or we think it's only going to be viewed on screen. So we can choose this on screen 150 ppi, right? And when we do that, it'll compress our pictures without taking away too much of their quality, right? So we still want them to look clear and look good. And by doing that, hopefully we can keep the clarity of our images and of our information without the file size being too large. So you might have to play with that a little bit to get your file size the size that you want. Okay, so we've compressed our pictures. And now the last reason I really love PowerPoint is if we go to File, we can go to Export. And here it gives us the option to export as a PDF. Okay, and then if we go ahead and export that, and then let's minimize this. So when I bring my recently created PDF in, you'll see it's really exactly like I made it. It's very clear. It's easy to scroll through. It's got all of my information, right? And that is an easy way to make a single page PDF. Now the other cool thing about PDFs is if you have another PDF file, so like let's say you have something you forgot to put in here, or you already had on your desktop or something, I don't know. If you have another PDF, you can easily drag those in and add them to your application. Right, so this was the PDF of the flyer that I had on my desktop. I just drug that into this single PDF that I had here. Okay, so using PowerPoint can be a really great way to create clean and clear applications really easily if they're asked for PDF. So when you're creating your applications, keep that in mind, okay? Thank you so much. Have a great day.